Hey, Olive, Arlo, and Frank. It's your raspy voiced granddaddy here in rainy Jacksonville Beach. If you listen, you might even be able to hear the raindrops outside. I have a cup of herb tea, and this was taken from the garden outside. One thing about our family is we're a family of gardeners. Recently, Olive, we were there in New Orleans, and your mom made this really nice dinner. It was like maybe a pot roast, and the herbs that were in it were from your garden. And Arlo, you have grapes growing and vegetables and all kinds of stuff. Your grandmother and I have limited space here, and we just have some herbs, and then a few, like a rosemary plant, which turns into like a bush, and a couple citrus trees, and then I have something called a bay rum tree, which isn't like rum, the alcohol. It's just this delicious leaf. It makes a wonderful herb tea. So you may be wondering why, if you've been following this through, that this is the second time that I've done Exodus chapter 7. The reason is because the first time I did it with a YouTube video. I think it was about like the common people of Egypt, ancient Egypt, during this time frame, playing in the background because I thought it might give you an interest in learning the history, because especially Olive, half of your lineage is through the land of Egypt, or in Hebrew it's Mizraim. I don't know how to say it in Arabic. So it would behoove all of us to learn more about ancient Egypt. And I thought that this was a good way to do that. And if you wanted to, you could go to that website, to that YouTube video and watch it yourself and learn what they have to say about it. But no, they decided that it was a copyright violation, that I stole their content. So I just contacted the people and said, look, I'll take it down. They went, oh, good. Anyway, in chapter 6, we saw that Moses had been sent to the children of Israel, and he told them, like, hey, God said that I'm going to go to Pharaoh, and he's going to let us go. And they did not believe that. Then, the second part of that chapter, they gave the lineage of Aaron and Moses to show that they were from the tribe of Levi, and that they had the right to be, it's almost like a priest. The Bible always does that. It shows legitimacy through, hey, this is who this person's father and grandfather and great-grandfather were, and all this. So now we're going to get into the actual plagues, the 10 plagues that God brought against Pharaoh, against the Egyptians, but especially against the Egyptian gods. And Pharaoh thought that he was one of those gods. The pharaohs at that point in time were worshipped, and they thought, like, hey, when I die, I'm going to go up and be in the heavenly realm with the other gods, and I'm going to be ruling over the world. So this is an attack against all three of those entities. So the Lord said to Moses, see, I have made you like God to Pharaoh, and your brother Aaron will be your prophet. So, in a way, he's saying that you're me. You're speaking for me. You're, you are to speak everything I command you, and your brother Aaron is to tell Pharaoh that he must release the Israelites from his land, from Pharaoh's land. But I will harden Pharaoh's heart. And this is very important because Pharaoh hardened his own heart, but God made sure that this was going to happen. This is for God's glory. Now, do I understand 100% like what this is about? No. I'm just your dopey grandpa reading you the Bible and telling you what I think it means. In what we would consider a perfect world, Pharaoh would have gone like, oh, you want him to go and you're God? Cool. I'm going to let him go and then I'm going to worship you as my God. But that's just not the way the world works. You know, where is Pharaoh going to spend the afterlife? I don't know. I don't know. I can guess. But that's all it is a guess. Is it fair that God hardened his heart? I'm going to say yeah, because I trust God. I believe that Pharaoh would have done this anyway, but like God wants a big show. This is something that at Passover every year, like 4,000 years later, the Jewish people still celebrate this. There's no other holiday, we'll call it, which holiday comes from holy day. There's no other holy day or holy festival in history that's been celebrated for this long. And this is the beginning of what Passover is all about. The 10 plagues, like let my people go. So we're not going to judge God, but God judged Pharaoh. And we're not going to judge God because it's not our job to be judges. So you can believe what you want to believe about this, but I don't want to get lost in the weeds. But I will harden Pharaoh's heart. And although I will multiply my signs and my wonders in the land of Egypt, Pharaoh will not listen to you. I will reach into Egypt and bring out my regiments. So we're talking about him bringing the people out. My regiments, my people, the Israelites from the land of Egypt, with great acts of judgment. Then the Egyptians will know that I am the Lord when I extend my hand over Egypt and bring the Israelites out from among them. Now, one thing I never thought about this before is this isn't just about them leaving Egypt and, escaping from Pharaoh. The Egyptians had fought in Canaan at least one time that I know about. I think they fought the people who would now be the Phoenicians, that were the Phoenicians later on. So, like the sea people of the coast around Lebanon. I believe that's who they fought. But they fought one of the empires there, one of the groups of people. In fact, they fought in Israel. I believe they fought at Tel Megiddo, which is where a lot of Christians believe that Armageddon is gonna happen. In fact, it's from the same root word, Megiddo. It's this large open area in Israel, in modern day Israel. So this has to be big enough that generations later, the Egyptians don't go like, oh, yeah, well, let's just go recapture those people and bring them back. Or let's go destroy their civilization. So this has to be not just, yeah, we're going to mess you up, but we're going to mess you up so that generations later people still realize, like, ooh, stay away from those folks. So he's going to bring the Israelites out from among them. And Moses and Aaron did so. They did just as the Lord commanded them. Now Moses was 80 years old, and Aaron was 83 years old when they spoke to Pharaoh. The Lord said to Moses and Aaron, when Aaron says to you, do a miracle, and you say to Aaron, take your staff and throw it down before Pharaoh, it will become a snake. When Moses and Aaron went to Pharaoh, they did so just as the Lord had commanded them. Aaron threw down his staff before Pharaoh and his servants, and it became a snake. Then Pharaoh also summoned wise men and sorcerers and the magicians of Egypt by their secret arts did the same thing. So Aaron threw down his stick. Some magicians came down, they threw their sticks. Boom, snakes. Everybody made snakes. But Aaron's staff swallowed up their staff, so that Aaron's snake ate all the other snakes. Yet Pharaoh's heart became hard, and he did not listen to them, just as the Lord had predicted. So now the judgments, the plagues. The Lord said to Moses, Pharaoh's heart is hard. He refuses to release the people. Go to Pharaoh in the morning when he goes out to the water. Position yourself to meet him by the edge of the Nile. So he's going to go out and take a bath. And take in your hand the staff that was turned into a snake. Tell him, the Lord, the God of the Hebrews, has sent me to say to you, release my people, that they may serve me in the wilderness. But until now you have not listened. This is what the Lord has said. By this you will know that I am the Lord. I am going to strike the water of the Nile with the staff that is in my hand, and it will be turned into blood. So it says he was going out to the water. Not that he had gone to the water and bathed. So here's like Pharaoh, all sweaty from probably a hot desert night. Gets up in the morning, like, hey, I'm going to get out there nice and early before the sun really comes up high and it gets hot again. And I'm going to get in the water and I'm going to get nice and clean and refreshed. And here's Mo coming along going, hey, not so fast. Not so fast, buddy. Bam, bam. Everything turns to blood. So Pharaoh's not going to get his bath. Fish in the Nile will die. The Nile will stink, and the Egyptians will be unable to drink water from the Nile. Then the Lord said to Moses, tell Aaron, take your staff, stretch out your hand over Egypt's waters, over their rivers, over their canals, over their ponds, and over all their reservoirs. So even the water that they've set aside in like cisterns to use later, so that it becomes blood. There will be blood everywhere in the land of Egypt, even in wooden and stone containers. So if you had like a glass of water, boom, it's blood. Now you have a glass of blood. And people say, well, maybe it just turned it red. You know, when Jesus turned water into wine, he didn't just drop some red dye in there. He turned it into wine. This is blood. Moses and Aaron did so, just as just as the judgment is happening. The thunder starts outside. Just as the Lord had commanded, he raised the staff and struck the water that was in the Nile right before the eyes of Pharaoh and his servants. Now you can imagine Pharaoh sitting there, standing there going, turn it to blood, yeah, right. And all the water that was in the Nile was turned to blood. When the fish that were in the Nile died, the Nile began to stink, so that the Egyptians could not drink water from the Nile. So, yeah, I don't understand this. I don't know how they. I guess they could still drink it when it was blood, but now it was stinky blood with like spoiled fish in it. There was blood everywhere in the land of Egypt. But the magicians of Egypt did the same by their secret arts. And so Pharaoh's heart remained hard. So Pharaoh's like, well, you know what? My guys can do this too. And he's going to keep saying this. And eventually they can't do it. The black magic arts are real. I'm not going to get into it here, but there are dark forces in this world. And he refused to listen to Moses and Aaron, just as the Lord had predicted. And Pharaoh turned and went into his house. He did not pay any attention to this. All the Egyptians dug around the Nile for water to drink, because they could not drink the water of the Nile. So well water was not affected. So right here, it's like, oh, I didn't, instead of going, man, this guy turned all the water we have into blood. It's like, well, we can figure out a workaround. Because they could not drink the water of the Nile. So we're going to look at plagues 2, 3, and 4 next time in chapter 8. And until then, peace out.